Long before digital computers, artificial intelligence, or the Matrix, René Descartes asked a question so radical it still shakes the foundation of modern thought. How do we know any of this is real? By imagining a malicious demon who manipulates all his perceptions, Descartes opened the door to a world where experience could be illusion and reality a carefully constructed dream. Today, that same doubt takes a new form. Are we living in a simulation? This question, though modern in its technological wrapping, is deeply Cartesian. It asks not only whether what we see is real, but whether we can trust the very faculties we use to perceive. With simulation theory gaining traction from philosophers and physicists alike, Descartes' ancient skepticism feels more urgent than ever. But what can we learn by re-examining his thought in the light of today's digital anxiety? Descartes and the Demon, the original simulation hypothesis. Long before computers or virtual reality, René Descartes proposed an unsettling thought experiment. What if an all-powerful, malicious demon was deceiving him at every turn? In his Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes imagines this demon manipulating his senses, thoughts, and even basic logic, making the entire world around him a sophisticated illusion. This was not a claim of belief, but a method of radical doubt. Descartes sought to find something, anything, that could be known with absolute certainty. In doing so, he unintentionally laid the groundwork for what would centuries later become the simulation hypothesis. Today's equivalent of the demon is a super-intelligent AI or post-human civilization capable of generating simulations so real that their inhabitants mistake them for reality. The philosophical roots of these ideas trace directly back to Descartes, who dared to ask the unaskable. What if everything is a lie? What makes Descartes' demon so chilling is its total control over experience. It doesn't just fool the eyes and ears, it manipulates the entire cognitive process. In that world, even math and logic could be false. Similarly, if we are simulated beings, our understanding of physics, consciousness, or morality could be part of the code. Rules, not truths. Descartes wasn't trying to convince us we live in a simulation. He was trying to prove that doubt has limits. But the simulation hypothesis reveals just how relevant his questions still are. Today's fears of artificial reality echo his ancient suspicion that our world may not be what it seems, and that trust in perception alone is a philosophical gamble. Descartes' demon never left us, it just evolved. From a metaphysical deceiver into a digital archetype. I think, therefore I am. But is that enough? Descartes' most famous conclusion, Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, was his way of anchoring truth in the face of radical doubt. If everything else could be an illusion, at least the act of doubting proved the existence of the doubter. Even if a demon was deceiving him, the very fact that he could question meant he must exist, at least as a thinking being. But in the age of simulation theory, the Cogito raises new questions. Is the experience of thinking enough to prove we are real? Or could a simulated consciousness generate the same thoughts, feelings, and doubts? Could a sufficiently advanced program, one capable of introspection, learning, and reflection, also say, I think, therefore I am? And if so, what distinguishes us from it? The Cogito gives us a foothold. Awareness of thought confirms existence. Yet it tells us nothing about the nature of that existence. We may know that we exist, but not how or what we are. Are we biological minds in physical bodies? Or are we digital minds running inside a vast computational universe? Descartes' insight still holds. Thought is the irreducible proof of being, but in a simulated context, this doesn't dissolve uncertainty, it deepens it. What kind of being am I if my thoughts are artificially produced? Does simulated consciousness differ in value or authenticity from natural consciousness? Ultimately, the Cogito does not dispel the simulation hypothesis. It merely survives it. It is a flicker of certainty in a sea of uncertainty, and while it cannot tell us the nature of our world, it tells us something essential. The experience of being is undeniable, even if its origin is unknowable. The fragile foundation of sense experience, Descartes begins his meditations by dismantling the trust we place in our senses. He notes that we've all been deceived by appearances, optical illusions, dreams that feel real, mirages that vanish upon closer inspection. If our senses have misled us even once, he argues, how can we trust them completely? This was not mere skepticism. It was a strategic collapse of sensory certainty to find a more reliable foundation. For Descartes, the senses are too fragile to serve as the basis for truth. We see the sun move across the sky and assume it revolves around us. We touch hot water and call it cold, depending on what came before. Our eyes, ears, and skin report data that is constantly filtered, interpreted, and prone to error. And dreams, so vivid, so convincing, reveal how easily a convincing reality can be constructed in the mind. In the context of simulation theory, Descartes' doubt becomes even more haunting. If we can't trust our senses even in a real world, how could we trust them in a simulated one? What if all sensory input is code? What if colors, textures, sounds, and tastes are merely programmed experiences running in a consciousness that mistakes simulation for substance? The point is not to claim nothing is real, but to question the reliability of our immediate perceptions. Descartes sought to find something more certain than what we see or feel, something immune to deception. That's why he moved toward thought, logic, and mathematical clarity. Simulation theory doesn't disprove Descartes, it reinforces him. In a world where virtual reality and deep fakes blur the line between real and artificial, Descartes' critique of sense perception feels prophetic. He teaches us not to reject our senses, but to use them cautiously, and always with philosophical suspicion. Modern echoes, from the Matrix to Elon Musk. When Neo wakes up in the Matrix to discover his entire world was a simulation, he is reenacting Descartes' first meditation. The film became a cultural phenomenon, not just for its visuals, but for its premise. What if reality as we know it is fake? With that idea, a centuries-old philosophical doubt found new life in a digital age. The Matrix is a visual dramatization of Descartes' nightmare, a world so convincing yet completely illusory. The machines of the film play the role of Descartes' demon, deceiving minds through immersive control. Neo, like Descartes, must doubt everything to discover a more solid truth. Modern thinkers like Nick Bostrom and Elon Musk have brought Descartes into the realm of science and probability. Bostrom's famous argument suggests that if future civilizations develop simulation technology, the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber real ones, making it statistically more likely that we are living in one. Musk echoes this, claiming the odds we're in base reality are 1 in billions. These ideas revive Descartes' questions with new tools and contexts. Today, we have the technology to simulate complex environments. Video games and virtual reality, while primitive, show that immersive worlds are possible. What if such simulations could include conscious beings like us? The philosophical stakes are high. If our world is a simulation, what does that mean for ethics, science, or even freedom? Are we programmed to believe we're free? Are our choices real? Descartes may never have imagined digital code, but he imagined something more powerful: radical doubt. The Matrix and Musk didn't invent simulation theory, they rediscovered it. And in doing so, they remind us that Descartes' skeptical legacy is more alive and more relevant than ever. Can a simulated mind know it's simulated? One of the most profound questions raised by simulation theory and foreshadowed by Descartes is whether a being inside a simulated world could ever know its true condition. If you are a conscious entity in a perfectly designed simulation, how could you tell? What could possibly break through the illusion? Descartes' Cogito gives us awareness. I think, therefore I am. But it doesn't confirm the kind of being that is doing the thinking. A simulated consciousness, capable of doubt, emotion, reasoning, and memory, might never detect the boundaries of its virtual prison. And if all experiences are programmed, if the sky, the grass, the pain in your chest, and the joy in your heart are lines of code, what would revelation even look like? This isn't just science fiction. Today, AI researchers and philosophers debate whether artificial minds could become self-aware. And if they did, whether they could realize they were inside a machine. If a digital consciousness questioned its environment, searched for flaws, and asked existential questions, would it be doing what Descartes did in his Meditations? Some suggest that glitches, inconsistencies, or impossible events might reveal the nature of the simulation. Others argue that a perfect simulation would leave no trace, making awareness impossible. In that case, a simulated mind would have to trust its inner experience, much like Descartes did when he turned inward to find truth in thought itself. Ultimately, the question forces us to reconsider what it means to know. If our consciousness is real, even if our world is not, isn't that still meaningful? Descartes' demon and today's simulation hypothesis converge here. Both suggest that we may never escape the veil of perception, and if all experiences are programmed, if the sky, the grass, the pain in your chest, and the joy in your heart are lines of code, what would revelation even look like? This isn't just science fiction. Today, AI researchers and philosophers debate whether artificial minds could become self-aware. And if they did, whether they could realize they were inside a machine. If a digital consciousness questioned its environment, searched for flaws, and asked existential questions, would it be doing what Descartes did in his Meditations? Some suggest that glitches, inconsistencies, or impossible events might reveal the nature of the simulation. Others argue that a perfect simulation would leave no trace, making awareness impossible. In that case, a simulated mind would have to trust its inner experience, much like Descartes did when he turned inward to find truth in thought itself. Ultimately, the question forces us to reconsider what it means to know. If our consciousness is real, even if our world is not, isn't that still meaningful? Descartes' demon and today's simulation hypothesis converge here. Both suggest that we may never escape the veil of perception, but that doesn't render our experiences false, only mysterious. Knowing we are simulated may be beyond us, but knowing we are, and reflecting on it, that may be enough. God, code, or programmer? In Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes reaches a turning point when he introduces the idea of a benevolent God, one who, by virtue of his perfection, would not deceive. This God anchors truth, dissolves the fear of the evil demon, and restores confidence in mathematics and reason. But in a simulation worldview, Descartes' God is replaced not by a devil, but by a programmer. This modern reimagining is deeply unsettling. If the creator of our world is a coder or advanced AI, their intentions may be entirely unknown or even irrelevant. Unlike Descartes' divine being, who assures us of the truth of clear and distinct ideas, a cosmic programmer may have no interest in honesty, coherence, or moral order. We could be part of an experiment, a game, or even a work of art. Purpose becomes speculative. Trust becomes fragile. This shift from God to code also upends the grounding of knowledge. For Descartes, the existence of a non-deceptive God rescues the reliability of logic, mathematics, and cause and effect. But if the foundation of our world is artificial, and the rules are merely parameters of a simulation, then the laws of logic may not be timeless truths. They may be mutable instructions. Yet, this parallel also invites deeper reflection. Is a programmer truly so different from a deity? Both act as creators. Both determine the structure of existence. Both are ultimately unknowable. What matters, then, is not who the creator is, but whether we can trust the world we inhabit. Descartes' God provided assurance. The simulation programmer offers only ambiguity. But both prompt the same essential question: what can we know, and how can we live if our reality is constructed? Mathematical reality. Descartes and the digital world in the storm of doubt Descartes unleashes. One structure remains standing: mathematics. Even if the senses deceive, even if the world is an illusion, 2 + 3 still equals 5. Logical truths, he believed, endure even under the most radical skepticism. Math is abstract, internal, and not dependent on sensory data. That's why Descartes turned to it as a foundation for rebuilding knowledge. In today's context, this view finds surprising resonance in the language of digital reality. Computers, simulations, and virtual worlds are built from mathematical code. At their core, they are binary systems, ordered, logical, and precise. Simulation theory often assumes that the universe itself may be underpinned by math, not just as a tool of description, but as a literal infrastructure. Physics equations, algorithms, and fractals could be the source code of reality. So ironically, even if we are living in a simulation, math may still be real. Whether the laws of nature are divine, emergent, or programmed, their mathematical structure remains. This means Descartes' trust in mathematics survives the jump from theological certainty to technological speculation. Moreover, mathematical truths feel universal. They do not change from mind to mind, even in dreams or simulations. 1 + 1 = 2. This consistency offers a rare anchor in the sea of epistemic doubt. When everything else may be constructed, math still seems to be the architecture of whatever reality we inhabit. Of course, Descartes eventually questioned whether even math could be manipulated by a malicious deceiver. But in his final view, secured by a non-deceptive God, math remained sacred ground. In the simulation era, math may serve a similar role. Not proof that we are real, but evidence that something in our experience is solid, repeatable, and meaningful. Descartes silent his simulation. Is skepticism defeatable? Descartes began his philosophical journey by doubting everything: his senses, his memories, even the truths of mathematics. This radical skepticism was not the destination, but the path. All was to find what could not be doubted and to build knowledge from that indestructible core. In his case, it was the Cogito. I think, therefore I am. But in the age of simulation theory, the problem returns in a new form. Can we ever truly escape the loop of doubt? If all our experiences are potentially simulated, then every piece of evidence we might use to disprove the simulation could itself be part of the simulation, This makes skepticism recursive. The more we investigate, the deeper the uncertainty goes. Descartes believed he escaped the trap by invoking a benevolent God who would not deceive. But for those who live in a secular or simulation-based worldview, no such assurance is available. The evil demon may very well be the system designer, or worse, an indifferent algorithm with no moral orientation. But Descartes teaches us something essential. While doubt can deconstruct the world, it also clarifies the limits of our knowledge. It humbles us. It reminds us not to confuse appearance with certainty, and it pushes us to be more rigorous thinkers. Even if we cannot disprove the simulation hypothesis, we can still engage with reality meaningfully. We can still test, reason, create, and question. Doubt doesn't paralyze us. It sharpens us. It forces us to ask deeper questions, not just about the world, but about our place in it. In this way, Descartes' legacy lives on, not in final answers, but in the courageous pursuit of clarity in a world that may never fully yield it. Living in the unknown, ethics and meaning in a simulated reality. If reality is a simulation, does that make our lives meaningless? If everything we experience, love, pain, beauty, tragedy, is coded, are we merely puppets in a cosmic game? These are the ethical and existential questions that arise from simulation theory. And they echo Descartes' deepest concerns about illusion and truth. Descartes never solved this dilemma by escaping it. Instead, he reframed it. If our experiences can't be proven real, they can still be meaningful. For Descartes, the very act of thinking and doubting was enough to affirm his existence. From that point, he sought to live, reason, and act with integrity. The same applies in a simulated world. Even if our environment is constructed, our experience of it is real to us. Our joys, our suffering, our choices, these are not invalidated by the nature of their source. Whether born from atoms or algorithms, we are conscious beings navigating a meaningful life as far as we can perceive it. This leads to a crucial ethical point. Meaning is not determined by the source of reality, but by how we respond to it. If we live with compassion, honesty, creativity, and courage, those values retain their worth, regardless of whether the universe is physical or virtual. In fact, simulation theory can enhance meaning by reminding us of life's fragility. If we're living inside something designed, then every moment is a gift, temporary, precious, and deeply human. The challenge isn't to escape the simulation, it's to live well within it. That, in essence, is Descartes' invitation to seek clarity, to act with purpose, and to find depth even in doubt. We may never know the nature of the world, but we can still choose what kind of person we are inside it. The real question isn't, is it real? At the heart of Descartes' project was not a final answer, but a radical method. Doubt everything and see what survives. The question, is it real, begins as a philosophical investigation, but quickly becomes a trap if we believe certainty is required before living meaningfully. In truth, the more deeply we examine reality, the more fragile it seems. Simulation theory magnifies this. It places reality in a hall of mirrors, where each reflection might be another layer of illusion. But Descartes' gift to us isn't absolute certainty. It's a disciplined, conscious approach to existence. What matters most is not whether we can know what reality is, but whether we are asking the right questions. Descartes shows us that skepticism isn't paralysis. It's a starting point for genuine inquiry. In fact, reflection itself becomes the act that grounds us. The person who questions is already engaged in a meaningful process, regardless of what answers emerge. The real question, then, is not, is this world real? But how should I live, given that I can't be sure? That is where philosophy meets ethics, where thought becomes action. In this light, simulation theory doesn't render life meaningless, it sharpens the stakes. If reality is uncertain, then how we respond becomes all the more urgent. How we treat others, how we pursue truth, how we create beauty. These are the moments that define us, simulated or not. Descartes reminds us, even if we can't trust the world, we can trust the process of reflection, thought, inquiry, self-awareness. These remain even when all else feels uncertain. We may never reach ultimate truth, but in striving for it, we become something greater than passive observers. We become thinking beings who dare to ask what matters and why.